The tradition started when I was 16 and Mom broke her wrist 2 days before Thanksgiving. "Sarah can handle it," she announced from her recliner, prescription painkillers making her drowsy. "She's been helping me cook for years." Helping meant peeling potatoes and setting tables. It didn't mean preparing a feast for 23 relatives with zero notice and no guidance. But somehow I managed it, staying up until 3 a.m. the night before, crying over burnt rolls, serving a meal that was edible if not elegant. "Sarah did such a wonderful job," everyone praised. "You're so lucky to have such a capable daughter." Mom beamed as if she'd trained me personally. Dad nodded approvingly. "Next year we'll let Sarah handle everything. She's clearly got a gift for this." I was exhausted, stressed, and had missed the entire holiday while frantically cooking and serving. But the praise felt good. Being useful felt good. Being needed felt like love. That was 18 years ago. Every Thanksgiving since, I've been the designated chef for our massive family gathering. What started as emergency help became permanent expectation. The guest list grew from 23 to 30 plus as cousins married and had children, but my role remained the same. Single-handedly prepare a restaurant-quality feast while everyone else enjoyed the holiday. Sarah's Thanksgiving became the family brand. Relatives would rave about Sarah's famous stuffing and Sarah's perfect gravy. They'd request specific dishes and dietary accommodations. They'd bring friends who'd heard about the incredible meal. The pressure to maintain my reputation grew each year. Nobody ever offered to help. Oh, they'd make token gestures. "Let me know if you need anything." But disappeared when I actually asked. They'd wander into the kitchen while I worked, sampling food and offering unhelpful commentary, but scatter when I suggested they could chop vegetables or stir something. "We don't want to get in your way," became the standard excuse. "You're so good at this, we just mess it up." The logistics alone were overwhelming. Shopping for 30 people meant multiple grocery trips with carefully calculated lists. Prep work started days in advance. Making desserts, preparing sides that could be stored, organizing cooking schedules to coordinate oven and stovetop space. Thanksgiving Day itself was a 12-hour marathon of cooking, timing, and serving. While everyone else watched football, played with kids, or relaxed with wine, I was trapped in the kitchen. I missed conversations, football games, and family moments. I ate my meal standing at the counter while cleaning dishes, long after everyone else had finished. The worst part was the criticism disguised as suggestions. "The turkey was a little dry last year. Could you make the stuffing less salty this time? Aunt Marie's rolls were better, but yours are fine." They treated me like hired catering staff, not a family member who was sacrificing her entire holiday for their comfort. By my mid-20s, the physical demands were crushing. Cooking for 30 people requires professional-level stamina and organization. I'd collapse into bed Thanksgiving night, exhausted and resentful, while everyone else had enjoyed a relaxing holiday. Friends would invite me to their Thanksgiving celebrations, but I always had to decline. "I can't, I'm cooking for my family." They looked puzzled. "Can't someone else cook? Or everyone bring something?" I'd never considered these options because my family had made it clear. Thanksgiving was my responsibility. Suggesting changes was met with horror. "But it won't be the same. You're so much better at it than anyone else." It's tradition. The tradition that mattered to them was receiving a perfect meal without effort. My tradition of working while they relaxed was apparently sacred. College provided temporary relief. I had legitimate excuses to miss some Thanksgivings. But even then, family members would call asking for recipes, complaining that Thanksgiving wasn't the same without Sarah's cooking. The guilt trips were intense. I was made to feel like I was abandoning family by pursuing my education. After graduation, there was no escape. I was back to full-time Thanksgiving duty, but now with added expectations. "You learned so much in college, I'm sure this will be even easier for you now." My career didn't matter. My relationships didn't matter. My own desire to enjoy a holiday didn't matter. What mattered was providing them with the perfect Thanksgiving experience they'd grown accustomed to. The breaking point built slowly over several years. Each Thanksgiving became more demanding as family members treated me less like a relative and more like a personal chef. They'd make special requests, dietary demands, and last-minute changes without considering the extra work involved. 3 years ago, my cousin brought her new boyfriend who was extremely picky about food. She handed me a list of his dislikes and allergies, expecting me to accommodate a complete stranger's preferences. When I suggested he could bring his own food or eat what he could from the available options, she was appalled. "Sarah, don't be difficult. It's Thanksgiving. Can't you just make sure there's something he can eat?" 2 years ago, my brother's wife decided to go gluten-free and expected me to prepare separate versions of every dish. When I explained that would double my workload, she accused me of being unsupportive of her health journey. Last year was the final straw. Dad handed me a list of 32 people 3 days before Thanksgiving. 8 more than I'd planned for. "Some folks are bringing friends," he explained casually. "I told them you wouldn't mind." I stood in my kitchen staring at that list, calculating the additional groceries, prep time and stress. I'd have to redo all my planning, buy more food and somehow accommodate 8 extra people with the same oven space and cooking schedule. "I do mind," I said quietly. "What?" "I mind. I can't cook for 32 people with 3 days' notice." Dad looked genuinely confused. "Sarah, you've always handled whatever we've thrown at you. What's different now?" What was different was that I was 34 years old and had spent 18 Thanksgivings working while everyone else celebrated. What was different was that I'd never had a relaxing holiday with my own family. What was different was that I was exhausted from being taken for granted. "I need help," I said. "Real help. Not people standing around offering to do anything while contributing nothing." "Well, you know how it is. Everyone has their own traditions and ways of doing things. It's easier if you just handle it." Easier for whom? Certainly not for me. That Thanksgiving was a disaster. I was overwhelmed, stressed, and resentful. The food was fine, but I snapped at people all day. I cried in the pantry while the turkey rested. I served dinner with red eyes and a fake smile, then locked myself in my room afterward. Multiple family members commented on my attitude problem and suggested I was getting too stressed about cooking. The solution, according to them, wasn't to reduce my workload. It was for me to handle stress better. In January, I started therapy. I needed help processing why I felt so angry and trapped by something I'd supposedly chosen to do. My therapist asked probing questions that revealed uncomfortable truths. "Do you enjoy cooking for your family?" I used to, years ago, when it was occasional help rather than mandatory labor. Now it felt like an obligation I couldn't escape. What would happen if you said no? They'd be disappointed, angry, and probably guilt me into compliance. Thanksgiving would be ruined, and it would be my fault. What if Thanksgiving was ruined? What would actually happen? People would have to figure out their own meal plans. They'd adapt. Life would continue. What do you want your Thanksgivings to look like? I wanted to enjoy the holiday. I wanted to spend time with family instead of working for them. I wanted to feel like a guest in my own life sometimes. My therapist helped me understand that I'd become trapped in a pattern of people-pleasing that had evolved into exploitation. My family had become accustomed to my sacrifice and now saw it as my natural role rather than a generous gift. We practiced setting boundaries and handling guilt trips. I learned to recognize the difference between helping family and being taken advantage of by family. I developed strategies for maintaining relationships while protecting my own needs. By October, I decided this would be my last Thanksgiving as sole chef. I would cook one final meal, announce my retirement from kitchen duty, and suggest alternatives for future years. But as Thanksgiving approached, the familiar pressure mounted. Dad presented the guest list, 30 people this year, with his usual assumption that I'd handle everything. Mom chimed in with special requests and dietary restrictions. Relatives called with their traditional demands for favorite dishes. The expectation was so absolute, so unquestioned, that I found myself falling back into old patterns. I started planning menus and making shopping lists despite my resolution to quit. The momentum of 18 years was hard to break. 3 days before Thanksgiving, I had an epiphany while standing in the grocery store. I was buying ingredients for a meal I didn't want to cook, for people who wouldn't appreciate the work involved, during a holiday I should be enjoying instead of enduring. I abandoned my cart and went home. That evening I called my best friend from college. "Are you doing anything for Thanksgiving?" "Flying to Portland to visit my sister." "Why? Can I come with you?" She was surprised but delighted. "Of course. But what about your family's big dinner? Aren't you cooking for like 50 people? 30. And no, I'm not cooking for anyone this year. Booking a last-minute flight was expensive, but it felt like buying my freedom. I packed quickly, left my kitchen empty, and prepared for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Wednesday evening, Dad called with final details. Cooking starts at 4 a.m., right? Uncle Bob's bringing his new girlfriend and she's vegetarian, so make sure there are plenty of options for her. Oh, and Cousin Jennifer's kids are all going through picky phases, so maybe some plain pasta as backup. Actually, Dad, I won't be cooking tomorrow. Long pause. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not cooking Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going out of town. Sarah, this isn't funny. 30 people are expecting dinner. Then 30 people need to figure out alternative arrangements. You can't just abandon the family. It's Thanksgiving. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm taking a break from being the unpaid caterer. The conversation escalated quickly. Dad was angry, then panicked, then furious again. He cycled through guilt trips, accusations, and desperate pleas. How could I be so selfish? Didn't I care about family? What were they supposed to do now? I stayed calm, just like my therapist had taught me. You could order catering. You could make it potluck. You could go to a restaurant. You could ask someone else to host. Families across America manage Thanksgiving without having one person do all the work. But you're so good at it. And everyone's counting on you. Everyone's counting on me to sacrifice my holiday for their convenience. That's not fair, and I'm done with it. I hung up before he could respond. My phone immediately started buzzing with calls and texts from other family members who'd been alerted to the crisis. I turned it off. Thursday morning at 3 a.m., instead of starting turkey prep, I was in an Uber heading to the airport. Instead of calculating cooking times and oven schedules, I was buying coffee and settling into my window seat. Instead of sacrificing another holiday to other people's expectations, I was finally putting myself first. The guilt was intense during takeoff. 18 years of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. I imagined the chaos back home as 30 people arrived expecting a feast and found empty kitchen. Part of me wanted to turn around and fix the situation I'd created. But a bigger part of me felt free for the first time in decades. Portland was beautiful. My friend's sister had a small gathering, just 8 people, where everyone contributed something. I brought wine and helped with cleanup afterward. We played board games, took walks, and actually enjoyed each other's company instead of just consuming food someone else had prepared. It was the most relaxing Thanksgiving I'd had since I was 15. My phone, when I finally turned it back on Friday, contained 47 messages. They ranged from angry to hurt to desperate to manipulative. The story I pieced together was predictably chaotic. The family had gathered Thursday expecting their usual feast. When they realized I wasn't there and no food was prepared, panic ensued. Some people left to find restaurants, most were closed. Others raided my parents' pantry for whatever they could find. A few relatives went to grocery stores and bought pre-made dishes. They ended up with a hodgepodge meal of store-bought turkey, instant mashing potatoes, canned vegetables, and frozen pies. It was, according to multiple messages, a disaster, and the worst Thanksgiving ever. Several family members blamed me for ruining the holiday. Others were hurt that I'd left without warning. A few were angry that I'd abandoned family during a time when we're supposed to be together. But buried among the guilt trips and accusations were a few messages that gave me hope. My cousin Mark, I never realized how much work you put into Thanksgiving. I'm sorry we took you for granted. My Aunt Linda, I understand why you needed a break. We should have helped more over the years. My brother, Mom and Dad are furious, but honestly, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. The most telling response came from my teenage niece. It was actually kind of fun figuring out dinner together. Like a cooking adventure. But Uncle Dave burned the rolls and Grandpa complained the whole time. Over the following weeks, family dynamics slowly shifted. Some relatives remained angry and refused to speak to me. They couldn't forgive me for disrupting their comfortable arrangement. These were people who had valued me only as a service provider, and without that service they had no use for me. Others began to understand what they'd been asking of me all those years. They reached out with apologies and invitations to smaller, more manageable gatherings where cooking duties were shared. My parents took the longest to come around. They felt embarrassed by the Thanksgiving disaster, and blamed me for making them look bad in front of relatives. It took several honest conversations before they could see the situation from my perspective. "We never asked you to cook for everyone," Mom protested during one particularly difficult phone call. You didn't have to ask. You expected it and I delivered. For 18 years. But you seemed to enjoy it. I enjoyed feeling useful and appreciated. I didn't enjoy sacrificing every Thanksgiving while everyone else relaxed. We didn't know you felt that way. This was the hardest part to accept, that they genuinely hadn't considered my experience. In their minds, I was fulfilling my natural role as the family caretaker. They'd never questioned whether that role was fair or sustainable because it worked for them. Eventually, we found a new equilibrium. Thanksgiving became a potluck where everyone contributed according to their abilities. Some people brought appetizers, others handled sides, a few managed desserts. The host, rotating annually, provided the turkey and coordination. The meals weren't as elaborate or perfectly coordinated as my solo productions. But they were more enjoyable because everyone participated. People appreciated the food more when they understood the work involved. Children learned to help instead of just consuming. Most importantly, I got to be a family member instead of kitchen staff. I could sit with relatives, watch football, play with kids, and actually enjoy the holiday I'd been working through for nearly 2 decades. 3 years later, our family Thanksgivings are smaller but warmer. Some relatives stopped attending when they couldn't get their perfect free meal, but the people who remained genuinely wanted to spend time together. We focus more on connection and less on consumption. I still cook, but as one contributor among many rather than sole provider. I make dishes I enjoy preparing and eat meals that are still warm. I have conversations during dinner instead of serving it. I participate in my own holiday. The Portland trip became an annual tradition. My friend and I alternate between visiting her family and exploring new cities during Thanksgiving week. It's my reminder that holidays can be about joy and discovery rather than obligation and exhaustion. My family now understands that my presence at their gatherings is a choice, not a given. That makes the time we spend together more meaningful because it's based on mutual enjoyment rather than one-sided service. Looking back, I realized that my Thanksgiving rebellion wasn't about abandoning family. It was about saving it. The old system was unsustainable and unfair. By refusing to continue enabling it, I forced everyone to find a better way. The people who truly cared about me adapted and apologized. The people who only valued my labor revealed their true priorities by cutting contact. Either way, I learned who my real family was. Today, I'm grateful for many things on Thanksgiving. The family members who love me as a person, not a service provider. The confidence to set boundaries even when it's difficult. The freedom to enjoy holidays instead of enduring them. And the knowledge that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to let them take advantage of you. It forces everyone to grow into healthier patterns and more authentic relationships. My kitchen is no longer a prison and Thanksgiving is no longer a source of dread. That's worth more than any perfectly prepared feast.